Greetings, and welcome to the Fortress of Dorkness, the nerdy nexus for all your geeky needs. I'm your host, Christian Villarreal. This Viewfinder takes a look at the last film in the scrumptious Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, The World's End. Edgar Wright's trilogy of films are fantastic at televising the plot of the movie into the story itself. We're going to break down how Wright takes 2 minutes to summarize the events of the film in the opening moments. Quick note, though a large portion of the plot involves Gary King trying to recreate a perfect version of his original run of the Golden Mile, we're covering the events beyond his control. So without further ado, cut to high school debauchery.
Newton Haven was our hometown, our playground, our universe, and that night it was the site of a heroic quest. The aim? To conquer the Golden Mile. 12 pubs along a legendary path of alcoholic indulgence. There was the first post, the old familiar, the famous cock, the cross hands, the good companions, the trusty servant, the two-headed dog, the mermaid, the beehive, the king's head, the hole in the wall, all before reaching our destiny, the world's end. We took my car into town. I called it the Beast because she was pretty hairy. And so our journey into manhood began. We were off. We didn't waste any time. We hit pub 1 and we hit it hard. There was drinking, there was fun, there was controversy, there were ladies, there were shots, there was drama, and of course, there was drinking. By pub 5, we were feeling invincible and decided to purchase some herbal refreshment from a man we called the Reverend Green. Pint 6 put O-Man out of commission, so we carried on without him. Good thing, I bumped into his sister in the next pub. We went into the Disableds and I bumped into her again. Sam tagged along for a while, but then I had to let her go. I had another date that night, and her name was Amber. 9 pints in, and it was us against the world. Things got mental in the beehive, so we repaired to the Bowls Club, or as we like to call it, the Smokehouse, which is when it all went fuck up. Everyone got power and Pete chucked a whitey, so we had to bench him. In the end, we blew off the last 3 pubs and headed for the hills. I remember sitting up there, blood on my knuckles, beer down my shirt, sick on my shoes, seeing the orange glow of a new dawn break and knowing in my heart life would never feel this good again.
Okay, now that that's done, let's see what happens over the course of the film. Let's start with the setting. Wright establishes Newton Haven as the universe, and then mentions that the Golden Mile is a heroic quest. This comes into play later in the film as we learn of the true, sinister nature of the town. Though the events run pretty straightforward according to Gary's plan to reboot their Golden Mile, things take a turn at the cross hands after Gary attempts to punch the bathroom wall as he did before. The first of the team to go in the intro is Oliver, who is seen throwing up after the trusty servant. Later in the film, Oliver is replaced by a blank, and none other than the very same pub. Gary mentions bumping into Oliver's sister, Sam, at the two-headed dog, which is exactly where Sam joins the team later in the film as she bumps into the group once again, as she and Gary end up in the disabled toilets both times. As the night progresses, Sam is let go by Gary when he sends her away after escaping the blanks, similar to how he's let her go earlier in his life. The boys are implied as getting into a fight when Gary mentions things got mental in the beehive. As the plot progresses, the big fight against the blanks occurs at the beehive just as before. The boys end up in the Bowls Club, where in their youth things all went fuck up and they ended up paranoid. As adults, they return to the Bowls Club after the beehive, where they realize their entire plan has broken down and they suffer an attack of paranoia as they try to figure out who is human and who isn't. After the Bowls Club, Peter is knocked out of commission and left in a park. The same thing happens to Peter years later as he is captured by blanks in the same spot when confronting his childhood bully. The remaining 3 heroes skip the last 3 pubs in the opening of the film. Gary rushes through the King's Head and the hole in the wall, having skipped a longer stop-off at each pub. Funnily enough, Gary, Andy, and Steven are the last 3 to make it through the night, with Steven passing out before Andy. Steven does get separated from the lot briefly, but they end up being the survivors of the group at the end of the film, with neither of them having been turned into blanks by the time they reach the world's end. Finally, Gary watches the orange glow of Newton Haven on fire as they head for the hills sparkles at the end of the film, a juxtaposition to Gary watching the orange glow over the town in the opening. That's all 12 beers! Wright cleverly hides the punchline so as not to give away the end of the film, while charmingly setting up everything you need to know from the get-go. If you have any questions, comments, or snotty remarks, leave them below. Please like, subscribe, and follow us on our social media. This has been the Fortress of Dorkness. I'm Christian Villarreal, and always remember, never fear the dork up here.